So I'm charged with 3 misdemeanors and 1 Class D felony. And Class D felony, there's a capital offenses, which carries a sentence of death, a term of imprisonment of life without parole, or a term of imprisonment without parole until you served at least 25 years, or a term of not less than 20 years, nor more than 50 years. So felonies, they got different grades of felonies. One felony is capital offenses. Another felony is a Class A felony, a Class B felony, a Class C felony, and a Class D felony. The Class D felony is an offense that carries a sentence of at least 1 year, but not more than 5 years. So at the most I could get 5 years, at the least I could get 1 year. Probably some probation, 6-year good behavior type bullshit. Yeah, so I'm being charged with the felony. I'm walking outside, I get jumped by 2 white men in plain white cars, and I got scared and I hit them. They tell me they're police. I get down on the ground like they tell me to. They punch me in the face. Now I got all these charges. I got a felony. I'm going to the hospital. You know, it's really frustrating. I was going to apply for a job. I was going to get out there into the job world. I'm going to Spalding University. I'm working to be a teacher, a U.S. history teacher, and I was working on getting out there and becoming a U.S. history teacher. But ever since this happened, it's totally put my life on hold. And you know, I wanted to get as fixed as possible. I've already had 2 operations on my nose, and it's as straight as it's going to get until they actually have surgery. When they want to cut, and they said that's going to be 6 months from now. So I got to wait 6 months until I'm completely healed, which means I have to walk around, you know, not the way I used to. This isn't the face that I had, you know, 2 months ago. So the process is first it goes to you know, it goes to district court. Felony goes to district court, track for felony prosecution, so they take it to district court at a felony arraignment. In district court, the defendant doesn't plead guilty or not guilty. Defendant's got a right to a probable cause hearing within 10 days of the arraignment if the defendant is in custody, or within 20 days if the defendant is out of custody. If the defendant requests a court-appointed attorney, the court will review that request at the time of the arraignment. So that's what I did. It was a district court track for felony prosecution. So I'm in district court. Room 204 in downtown in the courthouse, right? Room 204. I'm not sure who the judge is, but the thing I'm faced with, the next step is the probable cause hearing. So I had one lawyer, and then he switched it to another lawyer. So I had to waive my right to get a hearing in 20 days, and he just pushed it back a month to give my new lawyer a chance. So my new lawyer, you know, has to review the case and see what it is that he wants to, what he wants to do with it. The probable cause hearing is the first step, and then it goes to the grand jury if the probable cause hearing fails. The grand jury is, it's a grand jury, right? It's the one that indicts you and makes you go down to the real jury. I think they arrest you too. So the grand jury is 12 people, 9 of which must agree in order to find an indictment. So it's not unanimous like the jury trial. The jury trial is unanimous. All of them have to agree. With the grand jury, all you need is 9 of the 12 to agree, and then the indictment will be ordered on you. So if 9 of the 12 people in the grand jury agree that there's enough evidence to try you, then there will be an indictment, and you know, it'll go on from there. There's a new grand jury in Jefferson County. It's selected and sworn each month. So every month there's a brand new grand jury. The grand jury for January won't be the same as the grand jury in February. A regular grand jury shall remain in service until discharged by the court, but shall not remain in session longer than 20 days unless necessary to complete work on a case in which testimony has already been taken. Subject to the right of a person indicted to procure a transcript or recording of the grand jury proceedings, all persons present during any part of the grand jury proceedings shall keep the proceedings secret. No person other than the grand jurors themselves may be present during the grand jury's deliberations. The grand jury, upon the defendant's request, may hear evidence from the defendant but is not required to do so. The grand jury has the power to compel testimony. The Commonwealth's attorney shall be present at the proceedings when requested by the jurors, or may appear on his own initiative in order to seek an indictment against a particular defendant. The grand jury shall find an indictment where they have received what they believe to be sufficient evidence to support it. So it's not a ton of evidence, but just sufficient evidence. What is it? Beyond a reasonable doubt. That's what the jury trial has to figure out. The jury trial has to figure out beyond a reasonable doubt. The grand jury and the probable cause hearing, both of them only want to see sufficient evidence that an arrest should have been made. And there's no probable cause for them to stop me. They almost ran me over. They started cussing at me. I cussed them back. That pissed them off, so they drove around. They drove around me, which was the second part of the media's story on me that was cut out. So it makes me wonder if that piece was set up to turn on me. But the media had had interviewed me, and they talked about the donut and them almost hitting me and cussing at me. But when I said fuck you, they spun around and then they stopped right in front of me, and then they popped out of their car. Okay, so I was terrified. I was terrified for my life. I had no idea who these people were. I had no clue who they were. He pops out with a flannel and a baseball cap. That's another thing that wasn't mentioned. He had a flannel and a baseball cap, and then his other guy was plain clothes too. But his plain white car, he's cussing at me, almost run into me. He jumps out with a baseball hat and a flannel jacket. There's no way possible to know who these people were. There's no way possible. So I stood my ground. And I punched him. And then I'm blocking, and he comes over, and he hits me several times in the chest. I've been sore ever since then. It's December 7th, and it's now January 14th. So it's been 5 weeks later, and my chest is still sore. So they had to get some punches in there. And he says, you know, we're the police. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then I complied with all their wishes and did exactly as they wanted to. And that's all she wrote. I laid down on the ground. Bam, just, you know, from on top. A cowboy punch from on top. Whack. All right. So, this grand jury's deliberation. The grand jury, upon the defendant's request, may hear evidence from the defendant. So if I request it, I can say, hey, I got some evidence that I would like to share. And I think I would want to testify. I would want to explain to them what had happened. Go ahead, ask me all the questions you want to ask me. I mean, I'm driving in the middle of the road like that. When he stopped me and blocked my path, he's in the middle of the intersection, okay? So you got, it's not a police officer, it's, you know, it's Joel. It's Joel and Aaron, just two regular guys. And I heard about one case where the guy was off duty, and he pulls out a badge and says, you know, you need to do as I say, and he's got a badge. Well, if you're off duty and you pull out a badge, does that mean we have to comply? How do we know if you're actually working or not? You know, we have to figure out if you're on the clock. If you're not on the clock, you could just say that you was undercover and we'd have to believe you, right? So it was just Joel and Aaron, and Joel in a flannel and a baseball cap. Was cussing, and he pops out and he jumps out, right? I don't know. I would like to explain that whole thing. I just feel like when he popped out of the car, when he jumped out of the car, that it was on. He stopped the car right in the middle of the road, and he opened the door, and he says, you know, here we go. This is it. He stops the car in the middle of the road. In the middle of the road, you know, in the middle of the road. It's 4 lanes. There's parking lanes, but it's 4th Street. So he stops in the middle of 4th Street, all catty-cornered, blocking my path, and he jumps right out in front of me. There's just no way, there's no way possible to know who or what his business was. And it wasn't professional, certainly wasn't professional, it wasn't right, and you know, it wasn't fair. So, and all this, and then the malicious prosecution on top of it, and then the jailers, it's like once you walk in, you're not innocent, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but it's the exact opposite. They think that if you go into jail, then you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And that's backwards, right? That's not how our American legal system is supposed to work. You are innocent until you are proven guilty. So I'm allowed to testify. I'm allowed to give evidence at the grand jury. The grand jury's got the power to compel me to testify, so they can make me testify. The Commonwealth's attorney shall be present at the proceedings when requested by the jurors, or may appear on his own initiative in order to seek an indictment against a particular defendant. So the Commonwealth's attorney is going to be there. The grand jurors shall find an indictment where they have received what they believe to be sufficient evidence to support it. Sufficient evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt, but just sufficient evidence to issue an indictment, and then that sets up the jury trial. It says R. David Stengel is the chief Commonwealth attorney, so I guess that's the guy who'll be there, R. David Stengel. And whenever they file charges against you, it's the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky who file charges against you, which is kind of crazy since I'm the people, they're the state, but they take the guys as they're the people of the Commonwealth. It's kind of an Orwellian type thing. So the county attorney and the Commonwealth attorney will both represent the people of the Commonwealth. All cases that involve at least one felony, it says they're decided in circuit court sometimes. There's an appeals process too after all of this is over.